Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about basically how the brain works and how a nerve travels through the brain and we feel certain things, okay? So what I have right here is a picture of my brain that I drew, and I know it's an ugly brain, but for the most part, you'll notice there's these three parts that are up here. Now, basically what they are is this middle part is called the central sulcus. All right, so this is known as the central sulcus. And basically, what a sulcus is a shallow depression that's in there, okay? So in actuality, the brain actually dips in just a little bit right there. So a sulcus is a shallow depression. If I have several of them, like which I have them all over the brain, they're called sulci. So sulci is plural, sulcus is singular. So then if you notice right back here, we have this red area. If this is the central sulcus, and that's the front of my brain, because the central sulcus determines the front of the brain from the back of the brain. And again, you're looking at someone from this angle. Okay, so there's the front of the brain. This part here is going to be called my post-central gyrus. The solid parts of the brain are called gyrus. So when you see a brain, you see all those little squiggly things on it, those are called gyrus. It's singular. If it's plural, it's called gyri. Okay, so in this case, there's my post-central gyrus. So if that's my post-central gyrus, then that means this part here that's in front of the central sulcus is going to be my here, let me just move this up here a little bit. This is going to be my pre-central gyrus. Okay, so I have my post-central gyrus and I have my pre-central gyrus, okay? So now, if we look down here at the bottom of the brain, we're not going to go into all the parts of the brain, but to give you an idea of what we're looking at, one of the things that we have back here is something that's called our cerebellum. And this is on the back part of the brain. And the cerebellum, we always say it hangs like a bell off the back of the brain as a way to remember it. This big part is called our cerebrum. Okay, and we're not going to get too much into this. I'll do it in another video, but the cerebrum split into two hemispheres, a right and left hemisphere. All right, this part here is known as the brainstem. This part that's right here, this is known as the pons, and we'll talk about that in another video. So now, with the brainstem, we have something called the medulla oblongata. The medulla oblongata is at the bottom of the brainstem. And the medulla oblongata actually has several functions. It's responsible for your heart rate, it monitors your blood pressure, it monitors your respiration rate, and it helps in digestion. But the reason I have it here is because this is also a common area for nerves to cross from one side of the brain, or the brain stem, to the other. Okay, we'll see that in just a minute. Now below my medulla oblongata, if you notice it's in red right here, I have my spinal cord. Okay, so there's my spinal cord. So let's talk now about what happens in the brain. So if we look right here, let's say I have, I step on a nail and I'm going to feel pain. Okay, now for the most part, as you saw in the lateral spinal thalamic tract video, if you step on a nail, the pain's going to come in and cross to the other side of the spinal cord right away. I'm just going to make it sound like it's crossing right here in the medulla oblongata, just to give you an idea of something crossing over to the other side. So this would come up, right? And even though it doesn't, we're going to just pretend like it crosses right there. And then it's going to go into the brain, and it's going to go to something called the thalamus. So this is my thalamus right here. And the thalamus actually has several functions, which we'll talk about those also in another video. But for the most part, the thalamus, one of its functions is it acts like a relay station. So nerves come in, they go to the thalamus, and then from there they're going to go somewhere else. So if you notice right here, I have what looks like a Y right here. Okay? And what's going to happen is this nerve is going to synapse with another nerve. So there's another nerve. And then from here, the impulse is going to go up into the post-central gyrus. Okay? So really quick, it's going to go up into the post-central gyrus. Now, in the post-central gyrus, I actually have something that is called my primary sensory cortex. So I have my primary sensory cortex. Okay? That's going to be located in here. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to put PSC for primary sensory cortex, okay? So now the primary sensory cortex is responsible for a few different things. It feels pain, right? It also is responsible for pressure. It's also responsible for touch, okay? Which if you think about it, all touch is a form of pressure, right? So I could put some other things in here too, but we're just gonna leave it like that for right now. It's also responsible for temperature, right? Determine if something, or basically taking in the signals if something's hot or cold. And I'm gonna put this on here also for proprioception. Proprioception is the body's awareness in space. So for example, right now as I stand here, I can close my eyes and I know where my arms are and my legs are. That's proprioception. And we actually covered that on a video also. So now my signal has come up to here to the post-central gyrus. So what the post-central gyrus is going to do, really quick, the way the signal travels is I have my sodium-potassium gates. If you recall, the nerves have sodium-potassium gates opening and closing. So my sodium-potassium gates are so open, close, 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 open, close. They get to the synaptic knob. I release a neurotransmitter, which goes onto a dendrite, which I do not have drawn right here, but it's going to go onto a dendrite of this cell right here, of this nerve right here. And then my sodium-potassium gate is going to open, close, open, close, open, close, open, close, until they get to the primary sensory cortex. Now, at the primary sensory cortex, what's going to happen is that impulse is going to be turned into one of these sensations. So in this case, I said pain. So what this would do is this would say, I feel pain. The thing it won't tell me is it won't tell me what the pain feels like, and it won't tell me how bad the pain is. It has to be interpreted. This just tells me that there's pain. So from here, what's going to happen is it's going to send the impulse over to this area right here. And this area we call the somato. Somato means body, or better yet, let's call it somatic. Somatic sensory association area. So what the somatic sensory association area is going to do, it's going to interpret that pain. This tells me I feel pain. This is going to tell me, oh, that's a sharp pain and it's pretty bad. Okay? Or it may tell me that's really not that bad of a pain and it's a dull ache and it's not that bad. But it's going to interpret this pain for me, okay? So basically what this does is this interprets sensations. Now, there's more to it than this, and I will go into it in other videos. But what's going to happen now is, let's say I did step on a nail or something like that, or there's some reason why I want to move my body, okay? So, because normally if I stepped on a nail, it was just going to go to the spinal cord and a reflex is going to start to move it. But let's just say in this case, what's going to happen is it's going to then send a signal over to here. Okay, and again, this isn't exactly where it would be located, but anyways, I have something that's called my premotor cortex. So this would be my premotor cortex. And basically what the premotor cortex is going to do, so let's just really quick show, I'm sending information over to the premotor cortex, right? So it goes to the premotor cortex. And what the premotor cortex does is it decides we're going to initiate a movement, it's going to plan a movement, and it's going to coordinate that movement, okay? So it plans and coordinates movements. Okay, so plans and coordinates movements. right? So like I said, if I were to step on something, even though my reflexes would start the movement, once it gets to the brain, this is going to plan and coordinate any movement there. So then what it's going to do is it is going to send a signal over to the precentral gyrus. Okay, it's going to send a signal over to the precentral gyrus, and in here I have my primary motor cortex. Okay, so I have my primary motor cortex. My primary motor cortex is responsible for voluntary muscle movements. So it's responsible for voluntary, I'm going to call it motor movements. But basically, motor means muscle. Okay, and then one of the tracks it's going to use is something we call the corticospinal tract. So now what's going to happen is I get a bunch of nuclei in here that come together, right? A bunch of neurons that come together, and they're going to form an axon. And basically what's going to happen is it's going to carry an impulse out of this here. Let me just use another color real quick. It's going to carry an impulse here, come down to the thalamus, right? And then it's going to go into the medulla oblongata. And let's say, like I said, if I want to move my leg, this would actually cross over to the other side. And then it's going to travel down and it's going to move that part of my body, like my leg, my foot, or whatever, okay? So this is my primary motor cortex in here. Okay, so once again, oh, and just really quick, because this is coordinated movement too, this is also going to help make up part of this track too. Okay, about 35% of the nerves are going to come from here to make up that track also. So once again, I have my impulse coming up, it's going to go into the thalamus, it's going to go to the primary sensory cortex, which is located in the postcentral gyrus. I'm going to have my electrical impulse turned into a sensation. That sensation is then going to go over and be interpreted by the somatic sensory association area. Right from there, if I want to do a muscle movement, it's going to come over to the premotor cortex, which plans and coordinates the movement I'm going to do. The premotor cortex is then going to send a signal to the primary motor cortex, which is voluntarily going to move the muscle. And then we're going to come down like this, and we will move it. By the way, only about 75% of those pass over. And you couldn't, if you want to move your trunk or something, they're just going to continue straight down. So that's basically an idea of how an impulse or how the brain works. And this happens with all sorts of different things, such as the eye, the hearing, and all that. So we'll go into those in future videos. Anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching.